Hello, good afternoon. Time to get back to work after walking away earlier. So what we're going to try to do here is we've run into some massive issues where lighting does not work for orthographic cameras in ways that just cannot be reconciled. So we're going to have to change our orthographic camera system in order. We're going to have to change that so it's actually a perspective camera system. And that's kind of a big deal. So what we're going to do is we're going to first get a little switcher so we can switch back and forth between that camera pretty quickly, between perspective and orthographic mode pretty quickly in the game. So we're going to need our camera control data. We are going to have to add a few things. So what we need is a camera type. So we need not global camera values, but camera type values. So we are going to need a Boolean for orthographic. We're going to need a field of view. So we've got those, and we're going to need to add some defaults in here for it. So we're going to have it so its orthographic is false, and perspective field of view, I'm going to just put it 30. And then let's go to our player proxy actor. And our player proxy actor is going to basically need to set these things inside of our camera data. So I think it's inside of begin play. Do we have our camera data here? Get camera actor, unpack camera actor. So let's see what our player actor actually has on it. It's got our, where's our camera data? There it is. So basically we want to say like if our camera data orthographic equals true, then we're going to set it to orthographic. else we're going to set it to perspective. And the same thing here where we're going to set the field of view. And let's go grab that perspective field of view. So what this will do is this will allow us to switch our camera out pretty quickly here, and let's go ahead and make a camera that we can start using. And then we can easily swap back and forth between it. And the reason we're going to swap back and forth between it here is because I need to show Adam a bit of what some of the problems are with the lighting, and it'll be a lot easier to do that if we can switch back and forth. I also want to kind of mimic the exact same feel, so I want to be able to switch back and forth pretty quickly while we're iterating on it. And that was some of the stuff I was having some issues with earlier today, was swapping a whole bunch of stuff in and out with the camera. It's just a real pain in the butt if you have to compile your project every single time you change something. So you can improve that iteration time by data driving your basic data for your stuff like your camera and the rest there. Could also have thrown it off into blueprints, but this system was kind of built before I understood more of how to use the blueprint stuff. So it unfortunately does not have super blueprint ability, and I don't really want to take the time to do it right now. I mean, it's probably not a bad idea to do it, but we'll just have to see. So this is what it looks like right now with our very close-up camera. Like what we've got that actually does work. Like as you can see, this is in perspective mode and all that, which means we are ignoring these things. Orthographic is false. Yeah, okay. That was wrong. I don't want to break all the other cameras in the middle of it. I want to be able to switch to the other camera on a per level basis. And the reason we're remaking this camera, gosh, the orthographic camera, I guess, hasn't been getting any love from Unreal for the last 2 years. And a lot of the stuff is just broken with it, including shadows. And just without shadows and a lot of those other modern features in the engine, you can't really use a whole lot. Stuff just looks wrong. So it's a bit of a problem. Yes, this is our orthographic stuff at the moment. It like there are some things that do work, like, but then there are things that absolutely do not work. like our directional lighting isn't working. Our point lights don't get stopped by. They don't, cast any shadows. So it's a bit of a problem. As you can see, the sides of our pillars are looking wrong. Like, those sides should not be lit. Like they're outside of it, and we should also have a shadow over here. When we run in here, and there's no shadow, like, and then there's like random light right here. So the orthographic camera's shadow stuff is just completely wrong. It's just incorrect. So we're gonna go to Bitey Far Out Player, and I'm gonna change this to Bitey Perspective Player, and we'll update the camera as well, and we'll do Bitey Perspective Camera. Let's just make sure. So yeah, our Bitey Perspective Camera is using this thing. And we open it up, we can say, no, do not be orthographic, and our perspective field of view should be 30. We're going to set ourselves to be farther out. We're going to need to find a good distance. So let's just double check. Okay, yeah, we are in perspective. Can we just change this on the fly? Yeah, we can. So we're going to need a lot more perspective width and height than this. About 10,000 and 10,000. Looks pretty bad. Something's messed up there. But the lighting is working properly, which is what we need to happen. It's like I'm in shadow here. I'm not in shadow up top. Yeah, that's what it's all supposed to be like. We have all these shadows here coming through from our translucent stuff, so we can have super awesome cool stuff going on. So now, okay, so 10,000 works pretty decently. It's looking pretty washed out there with some of those effects. I'll have to double check that they're not all just a bunch of trash. We have kind of a very strange camera setup, so let's take a look at this field of view. So what if we set this field of view to 20? I'm going to make this so I can actually update this at runtime. Alright, 8 layer proxy actor, update camera from data. Is there a get field of view? Camera component.h get field of view. Looks like just field of view. So it's like if and camera field of view equals the respective FOV. So this should let us change our camera field of view on the fly now. So we should be able to mess around with all the things. Or at least mess around with some of them. All right. And our camera field of view is basically how wide our camera is, so we need to know how messed up everything is with that camera. Like if our near clip and far clip get all sorts of screwed up. So this is a 10 field of view. So like this is the default field of view. 90. So if we go like 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, and then like 10, you can see we get closer and closer to what would be a perspective camera. So let's see if we can actually get away with like, well, if we go to like 0, what happens? Okay, just 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And the good thing about a perspective camera is it's very easy to judge distance on screen because your distances aren't changing. So it's really good for platforming because you know exactly where you are and where the size of the pixel does not change based on anything on the screen. It's just like, well, it's that far away. The issue, of course, is, you know, like also like you'd be able to see fat sack completely in an orthographic projection. Problem, of course, is none of this crap works. So let's see if we can actually get it super zoomed in. So this is at a 10-degree field of view. And 20,000. So let's see if we can do like 30,000. And you can see the foreground there is looking really flat, which we don't want the foreground to look super flat like that. So the real question is, what sort of field of view can we think we can get away with? Like, I mean, 10's looking pretty decent. So let's see what a 20 looks like. As you can see, that foreground's not looking quite so flat because we have actually got a bit of movement going on. Well, I think 30 is probably the winner for all this. So why don't we just bring it back in? And we got weird stuff going on like that. Though these are just like huge scaled up, gigantic pieces of geometry. We kind of expect them to look kind of messed up. Alright, so I think that's a good preset for this thing. And I'm not too worried by stuff like that little guy down there. Like we can do some stuff with this. That's not too bad. Alright, so what we need to do is we need to fix those background planes and the foreground planes. So I think one of the things I need to figure out here is where exactly is the camera at the moment? Because where'd we actually end up putting it? It's at negative 5400. Where's my pen? Okay, so the camera's at negative 5400 X. And where is the rest of our camera sandwich? Alright, it is. Foreground capture plane is at negative 400 and 400, so. So the question is, can we get rid of the front capture plane? Let's take a look at these things that we've got here. So these shrubs are kind of our foreground. I'm gonna make another these folders are all sorts of screwed up. So these should go on, should make another folder here. Arena geometry. Yeah, let's throw them in there. Well, not in there, we should throw them in something that's like create folder, just doodads. We'll throw all of our little shrubs that are not in the foreground in it. That just helps organize things. So let's see if we chunk these things out here. Let's see at what levels we can actually put all these objects. Let's actually group them up. Well, that's not helpful at all. Like, what I want is, I want to be able to see kind of the average X value of the group, and that's not being shown to me. Alright, so they're like 4,000. So how high would they have to be for us to actually see them? So I can put this camera out at 4,000. But it's in the wrong mode. Alright, it's looking okay. I mean, this is just some garbage art anyway, so it's not like we're looking for it to look super pretty. It just needs to move at a different speed, kind of. And it does actually work. So it's not too terrible, to be honest. Alright, so if we got those things placed, what we're going to do is we're going to mess with the front and back capture planes. I think we can just remove the front capture plane. So why don't we do that? Or why don't we just Oh, we actually also just make a few things that actually enable or disable those capture planes. That sounds like a much better plan than screwing around with disabling and enabling them over and over and over again. Alright, so if we go to our proxy actor, so we can do our disable. Alright. This doesn't have to be super great to start with here. So all we got to do here is basically say like if camera data draw foreground plane equals false and foreground is active, then we're going to call it disable background plane. If camera data draw background plane equals false and background is active, we'll have a disable background plane. And I think we've got so let's just add some checks in there. So this should let us enable and disable the background planes so we can see what's going on with them. Right now they're set to scale to the ortho width, which is wrong when we're using a perspective camera. Basically we're kind of faking a different perspective in the background by drawing to a render target and everything behind it. Yeah, we're basically drawing to a render target, then drawing to a quad that's in the scene, so it's kind of a porthole into what the camera would have been seeing, and we just combine that with some alpha transparency effects. It works pretty well. Works pretty well, except none of the frickin' lighting or any of the shadows work properly inside of the orthographic camera, so I'm pretty much SOL. So let's hit play here, and let's see if we disable the background plane. Nothing's happening. So let's see, disable draw foreground plane is false and foreground plane is active. Oh yeah, okay, so we need to... There's more to do. We can actually just get rid of this crap here. We don't need it. Because we already wrote this function. And it already updates, it already does everything correctly. So it's basically if the foreground show IDs is equal to 0, we actually have to manually sort our actors for which to draw to which things. There's no like render flags that you can set. Which again is unfortunate, the scene capture components just aren't super great. Kind of Unreal is set up to draw a perspective camera nicely in 3D and all that stuff. That's just what it does. And when you try to do something else, it's not too happy about it. So we're trying to do something else, so it's not very happy about it. So, alright, let's toggle our foreground plane. And of course, it's not drawing anything at all for the foreground plane. Oh, it is. It's drawing it, but it doesn't look all that different. And if we draw the background plane, it's all sorts of screwy. Alright, so that's working fine. So the next thing we need to do is we need to change the scale of the foreground and the background and all that. So what is it? Update camera position. We need to resize render quads. So basically this X scale and Y scale is this sort of thing. So we need to do like if in camera projection mode, if that's going to be projection mode, that's orthographic, then we do this. Otherwise, we need a new scale for these things. So let's think about this real quick. So we need to set these objects' scales to, they need to be the size of the screen. So basically what we want is we're going to want to compute how wide this thing needs to be based on its distance from the camera. So like our current camera width. Was an orthographic projection camera width. And that's no longer the case. So we should be calculating it based on our distance. So we need our min x. So float like distance to plane is going to be like our current position. So when is resize render quads called? It's called after we position. Maybe we should call resize first, or position first and then resize. We also need the field of view. And we also need the aspect ratio, that's true. Strain to aspect ratio. We should be setting this aspect ratio. Well, we can deal with that in a little bit. So render planes are setting the translation to 0, 0, 0, setting a relative transform. Position the camera is grabbing the camera actor. Alright, we need to get the uScene component here. We need to grab stuff off of it. Component to world? Yeah. So basically what we need to do is we need to find the scale of this thing. So we need to figure out how wide this thing is in pixels. And this thing is going to be basically what it's the sine of the field of view. Or I guess it's the cosine of the FOV. Well, the cosine of the FOV squared plus the distance squared equals the other thing, but that doesn't really help us. It's though they are proportional. So if the distance was 1, so let's see. So, alright. We've got the distance squared, so Or we could just Google the answer. So the height is going to be 2.0 f times the distance. So you've got the distance. So float height equals 2.0 f times the distance to plane multiplied by f math tangent of the FOV times 0.5 times nothing. And the float width is going to be what the height times the aspect ratio. So we're gonna have the this will be float foreground width and float background width, and we'll have distance to foreground and distance to background. And let's do foreground pause and background pause. So it's going to be foreground position X. Aspect we don't need, we've already got aspect up top. So let's just fill all this out real quick here. Speak background pause. Distance to, yeah, let's just change the things to be plane position, distance to plane. So I think we should basically be all right with this. Let's take a look. But this should scale up our two projector screens basically, and to the right scales for our camera. What's it complaining about? Term does not. What is get translation the thing that it's complaining about? No, it's opponent to world doesn't have transform. I should definitely be able to call on that thing. So why is this pissed off? Oh, it's get component to world. Well then. So grab our background foreground planes, we're gonna compute the distances, and we should have our scales. So let's see if it works at all. Let's see, let's draw our background plane. And we're drawing our foreground plane. We're not drawing anything in it. So that's fine. So what is the scale being set to here? And is it staying the same size based on this?